Hi. So, after many months of riding around on a Honda 70, um, looking at places of interest, learning routes by half, spending my time in the evenings in some rat infested dump with a bunch of people who were doing the same miserable thing I was, and putting myself through a lot of stress at my own expense and using much of my time up. Eventually, I got a license. And it's not, as some people think, a license to print money. I don't know how often I've heard it. Oh, you cab drivers are all the same. You've all got loads of money, and it's just not true. And nobody in the right mind would think that. I don't think. But it's what is true is that cab drivers can earn a lot of money. Uh, Let me explain that. If you work 40 years, or you work a proper working week, a normal working week, you earn a reasonable wage, similar sort of wage to a semi-skilled workman, electrician or a plumber or something like that, maybe. Uh, but of course, you are self-employed, so you don't have sick leave or pension contributions or paid holidays or anything like that. You have to get up and go yourself. But if you work time and a half, say 60 hours plus a week, you can earn twice as much money. And if you're a complete idiot and you need, or you have a very serious need for money, you could work 80 hours a week and you can earn three times as much, because of the way that the expenses in relation to your earnings work, right? And so it's very useful if you need to get a deposit for a flat, or you want a car, or you have a big bill to pay. You can go out and just work until you've got enough money to come home with and pay it. So, and there are cab drivers who just carry on doing that. I don't know what the purpose of their existence is. I mean, as far as I understand it, the meaning of life is it's the time that you spend in it. It's the time that you have to yourself to do what you want to do, not the amount of money you have, or there are people who just work all the time. They go to work. I used to know one guy in particular, one chap I knew. He had a beautiful house in Enfield, a lovely wife, and some wonderful children. But he was never there. They didn't know who he was, really. I mean, he was always out working, earning money to pay for it. Well, that's not a life. Not the life for me, anyway. I mean, he was probably looking forward to his retirement, and I can tell you now, having retired, that you're much better off enjoying life while you can than waiting till you're in your 70s, because it's not too late to have a good time, but it's definitely too late for some things. I mean, I don't think my skiing days. I think they're behind me and my water sports. So anyway. That's the gist of it. There are some rich people who drive cabs, but they use that as a platform. They didn't get rich by working hard in a cab. They got rich because they got a head start in a cab, and they used it wisely and invested and moved on to other business, property development or something. It's quite a common one. and and thereby they made themselves rich, but they didn't get rich by working hard as a cab driver. When I got out, the aim of the exercise is to provide a premium service to select customers and charge a premium for it. You're providing a slightly better, so if people want to save money, they can get on the bus, or they can get a minicab. But if they want a cab, somebody who knows where they're going, a professional driver, and a reasonably comfortable cab that's roomy, you can spread out in the back, then you want a cab. And we're entitled, we should be entitled to charge a small premium for that. And so a cab is more expensive than regular transport. It is open to everybody. It's not just transport for the rich, but regular people, ordinary people, use cabs occasionally, and it is usually an occasion when they do use them. They might be going to a wedding or a funeral, or perhaps they've won at the bingo and they don't want to go home with a pocket full of money. Or they've got a lot of luggage to carry and they need to get a train station. Or they're going out on their first date and they want to impress somebody. But that's what taxis are for occasional use by people like that, and for regular use by people who can afford it. An expensive shop doesn't have its prices in the window. And what they say is if you need to ask the price, you probably can't afford it. And it's the same with cabs, really. Although they're not outrageously expensive, but if you're trying to save some money, don't get a cab, get a bus. It's going to cost you a little bit more, but it's going to be a little bit better, generally speaking. The ideal customer is somebody who's going from a hotel to Harrods, or going from Piccadilly Circus to Leicester Square, or going from the Gherkin to Canary Wharf, or something like that. The sort of people who use a cab, particularly the city people, use a cab, they're earning hundreds of pounds an hour. They're not worried about the price of the cab. They just don't want to get on a tube. They haven't got time. They don't want to waste time. They just want to save half an hour of their time. That's worth hundreds of pounds. To me, it's 20 quid, maybe. And they can get in a cab. They can leave the driving to the driver, and they can get on their phone and make a few phone calls, do a bit of work. And that's what they do. Why don't cab drivers like Ken Livingstone? Well, Ken Livingstone, I think we were all glad to see the back of him when the GLC was abolished. Not because we're not, that cab drivers aren't socialists. I mean, there are a few sort of right-wing bigots in the cab trade. Most people aren't like that. Cab drivers aren't all the same. They're all very different, actually. And heavens, there are fascist bigots in the Conservative Party. Nobody says they're all the same. They are, but nobody says that. Oh yeah, well. Ken Livingstone. Well, he had a vision for the cab trade, and one of the harebrained schemes that he came up with was fast tracking people through the knowledge. You know, immigrants, people who don't have the English as their first language, you know, fast track them through the knowledge so that they could become cab drivers. Well, when you're a cab driver and you've been through all that trouble to get to be one, you don't want somebody to come along and make it easier. You're an elite service. You want to limit the number of cab drivers there are, not boost them. And he also resisted any rise in the fares. Oh yeah, well, you know, costing the people of London more money or something. But it's a premium service. I mean, you don't have to get a cab. You can save money by getting a bus. But Ken wanted us to be like under his control and under London Transport. Wanted us to be part of London Transport, and nobody wants to be part of London Transport. If you wanted to, you could learn to be a bus driver. I could have done that. Would have been easier. I got paid while I did it, and it wouldn't have taken nearly 2 years. I wouldn't have had to do all that legwork and memorising and stuff. No, when you're a cab driver, it's a premium service, and it should attract a premium price. And I think Ken really his bugbear really was that he lived in Cricklewood and he could never get a cab to go there. And probably true. Who wants to go to Cricklewood if they can help it? It's on the edge. It's on the edge of the 6 mile limit, and you were able to refuse to go there. One of the first things that Ken did when he came back as Mayor of London was to change the 6 mile limit to 12 miles, which was, well, I don't know, I suppose it means that somebody could now say, you've got to take me to Cricklewood because it's a 12 miles, it's within the 12 miles. But if nobody wants to go 12 miles in a cab, generally speaking, they don't even want to go 6, they want to go 2. You know, because they're not using a cab for transport, a long distance transport, and occasionally you get a job to the airport or something, or even further. But no, you know, generally, if you get a cab, you're not going far. And so the refusal. Well, and the reason I don't think it's fair. I mean, the 6 mile dates from horse-drawn days actually, but when you couldn't expect a horse to go for more than 6 miles there and 6 miles back, that was a day's work for a horse. But there are people too. We're people, and we're not machines. And if you get if you have to go, if you live 12 miles north, and somebody comes up to you near the end of your shift and says, "You've got to take me to Croydon, 12 miles south." You've got a 34 miles journey before you can get home. You're tired. You want to go home. You wouldn't refuse the job normally. You know, be nice, but you don't want to do it on that occasion because you're tired. And so you have to have a reasonable limit. And I think 6 miles is a reasonable limit. Oh yeah, when Ken got back into the Mayor of London, as Mayor of London, he created, one of the first things he created was Transport for London. So that everything became, I mean, we're no longer administered by the Metropolitan Police. are no longer individual and special, but they can't tell the difference between us and Uber drivers. And as I've said before, there is a difference. If you get an Uber, you're going to have to cram yourself into a Toyota Prius with a man who doesn't really know where he's going, and has probably worked an 8-hour shift already and has another 8-hour shift to work because his margins are so tight that he has to work all the hours God sends just to make ends meet. And he's got a sat-nav to tell him where to go. Sometimes that works, but it's not always the best way to go. And then when you get there, if the algorithm's in a good mood, you're going to save yourself a couple of pounds. But if a couple of pounds means that much to you, good on you. But if you want to travel with a little more confidence, comfort and style, you pay the extra £2 and you get a black taxi. Well, that's all I can think of for now, so I'll see you later.